This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Hello, Kentuckiana. I'm your special host of Kentucky's Voice, Dr. Lance Pearson on 970 AM. I want to remind all of our viewers that we are on TV today, I think at 12:30 and at 4 p.m. on Channel 21 if you have Spectrum TV. We also have a live stream on Facebook, and we have a live stream and also post videos on YouTube. So just search for the Kentucky's Voice channel. Today's show, I'm extremely excited to talk about an important issue, AI. But before we even get into that, I want to mention the passing of former Governor Martha Lane Collins. She was I believe a survey came out during the end of her administration that basically said that over half of the state had met her personally. So she was very engaging, and it's a great loss for our Commonwealth.
Yeah, Lance, of course, she was responsible for bringing Toyota here, which was her legacy as a governor policy-wise. But she traveled to all counties. She talked about how she spent time in all 120 counties, a real Kentuckian through and through. So we wish her family, condolences to her family, and a great lady. And first and only female governor of Kentucky to this point.
So far, yeah, yes. Exactly. Okay. Let's hop into our topic. This is a topic I'm very excited about. My PhD actually was in a field that was pretty closely related to AI. So the topic for today's discussion is going to be artificial intelligence, which will probably just be referred to as AI going forward. So in this intro segment, I wanted to just give a basic primer of where we are in artificial intelligence. What is it? What are we even talking about? How is this technology reshaping our world, including right here in Kentucky? So the first question I want to address is, what is AI? At its core, AI refers to computer systems that are designed to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, things like recognizing patterns, making decisions, or solving problems. AI in general isn't new. You remember back in the 1990s, there were those crazy chess-playing computers that could beat the best human in the world at computers. They just basically did so many calculations so fast that they were able to brute force it and use all that computing power to beat the best human. Well, now it's exploding, and it's expanded way beyond that. So the major drivers of that are there are increases in the speed and the affordability of computing power. We also have massive data sets that the social media companies have accumulated of basically all kinds of human interactions online that they can learn from. So AI is now moving from is now moving beyond just having more and faster computations that are just using a given algorithm and doing it faster and more often. And they're now going into some surprising domains like understanding human language. The results and the learning of these AIs are becoming highly unpredictable, and they're not limited to just one domain. One key set of AI is called generative AI, and that's creating new content essentially from scratch. You've probably heard of tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude. There's some image generators like Midjourney. These things can write essays, they can compose music, they can design artwork, they can make videos like with AI Sora. So globally, generative AI, which is a special subset of AI and what you probably are thinking of right now when you hear AI, has been explosive in its growth. In 2025 alone, private investment has now gotten to $34 billion. That's up 19% from just last year. It's being rapidly adopted with massive investments by the world's largest and most powerful companies. A staggering 2 billion people have some sort of computer AI that they use. Almost 400 million people use AI tools, and 64 million new users just joined in the last year. So extremely rapid growth. 40% of U.S. employees report that they use some kind of AI on work. That's doubled in just 2 years. So we will talk through some of the impacts of AI as we come back on the next segment. Please join us, and we'll have some great guests on to discuss this.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your special host, Dr. Lance Pearson with the Kentucky Liberty Caucus. Today we're talking over artificial intelligence and its impact on our society. I want to get in, and I did an intro in a brief intro in the first segment. Let me just talk about the cutting edge of AI. The cutting edge of AI is the possibility of what is called AGI, artificial generalized intelligence. Some people see this as the holy grail among AI researchers. Some people think it might be opening a Pandora's box for humanity. What happens when an AGI, which is a computer system that vastly outperforms all human intelligence? We have computers at some point that are just smarter than all humans, and they continue to get smarter and smarter at an exponential rate. What's the future of humanity look like? Now, we won't get into all those things, but I know a lot of people out there have that on their mind. In a future show, we'll probably talk about that. Now, in this segment, we really want to talk about the economic impacts of AI. Economically, AI is a powerhouse. The global AI market is set to top $244 billion this year. U.S. firms alone are investing $1.9 billion. They invested $1.9 billion last year. Kentucky, in particular, has plans to greatly expand energy production, build more power plants, especially LG&E and KU. Those plans include at least 15 prospective hyperscale data centers, and we've talked about that on previous shows, some of the impact there. Some project the generative AI, the ones that can understand human language and actually create new content, new essays, new videos, new pictures, that could add $2.6 to $4.4 trillion annually to the world economy soon. That's basically just through productivity boosts. Some claim it could bring an era of superabundance. We'll have so much stuff that people won't have to do a lot of work, and we'll just have an excess of so many things that we'll have universal basic income, and everybody will just get money from how great AI and robotics are.
Maybe
we'll
Sora
see.
and Mondani in New York would like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see on that. We're not going to get into that either, but we are going to focus in on economics. As we roll into our discussion of economics, I want to talk about some of the guests that we have on. You've already heard from Jim Waters, who's he's a frequent host of Kentucky's Voice. We also have two very esteemed guests. We have State Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe, and we have State Representative Josh Bray. Amanda Mays Bledsoe represents part of Fayette County, Woodford, Mercer, Boyle, kind of central Kentucky. And State Representative Josh Bray represents part of Laurel, part of Madison. He's from Rockcastle and part of Pulaski as well. So the reason that they were brought on is because they are the co-chairs, the Senate and the House chair, of the interim AI task force in our Kentucky legislature. That legislative task force was formed in 2024, and this is their second summer going over some of the issues that are related to AI. In particular, today we're going to talk over how Kentucky's task force on AI attempts to balance promoting innovation, the adoption of this technology, and the economic efficiency growth that can possibly come from that, with protections against some of the risks. And some of the risks that we will probably talk over with both of these legislatures are things related to privacy, bias, liability, deep fakes, not even knowing what's real anymore because AI can produce things that you would think a human could only produce.
You saw that with an image with the vice president.
That's right.
That just came out.
And there was just a video in the New York race that he mentioned earlier with Cuomo making a Halloween video that said generative AI on the bottom of it because it was a fake video of Mondani and doing a parody of some of his policies.
Right.
Okay, so if we could bring on, why don't we start with Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe? The Kentucky State Legislature has actually passed some policies as relates to AI and government in this last session. And so I think by one report, all 50 states at least filed a piece of legislation this past year on AI, and half of them passed it. So Kentucky's right there. We're right there on the cutting edge. It's great to see that in this cutting edge technology, we're on the front end of some of this legislation, not waiting a decade to get into it. So, Senator Bledsoe, Mays Bledsoe, could you talk about some of the regulatory frameworks that SB4 put into place, and what risks are they specifically designed to address?
Sure, happy to do so and happy to be with you. Representative Bray and I worked hard together on SB4. So while it carries the Senate designation, it was a joint bill. And our goal really was to talk about artificial intelligence is a tool. It's a tool that technology enables us to have as a consumer or as in a government in a case use. And what the idea behind Senate Bill 4 is as the government starts to use AI in whatever way we wish to do so, that we have specific case uses, that we understand why we're using it, who's deciding if it's the right use and application of artificial intelligence, and also making sure there's accountability, transparency, and also the private use of the data. You know, when you, as a government employee, it's just as easy for me to use ChatGPT to ask a question as it would be for me as an employee of state government. And so that might be fine at my home computer, but once you're doing that with Kentucky's questions and with Kentucky's data, you want to make sure we have some guardrails around that. So Senate Bill 4 basically put forward a program and platform so that as Kentucky government decides where and where they might think AI might be applicable, that there's a process in place to protect the Kentucky citizens and their data, while also providing some really cool innovation opportunities moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. Josh, did you have anything to add to that? I know that there were some revisions in the House that really changed the bill as it moved to the House. Did you have anything that you wanted to say about that bill?
No, thanks for having us on. You know, like Amanda said, Senate Bill 4 provided the framework, really the permission structure for state government to take advantage of the technology. We all know government isn't efficient. It's not as effective as we would like. So we do feel like there's a lot of good use cases where AI could make the average citizen's experience with the government better. So we wanted to put out the permission structure in which state government could utilize AI, and Senate Bill 4 was our first stab at it. Like Amanda said, we wanted the transparency side of things so that the average person would know how AI is being utilized. We wanted to make sure it couldn't be used, for instance, to deny, somebody's unemployment claim,
right,
or to make a decision that could negatively impact people while allowing for the positive side of that, right? So like if it can just take a chat bot, if you want to know how can I set up a business, well, if there's a chat bot on a website through the Secretary of State's office that you just ask a question, it tells you how to do all this, it answers your question. That's a lot more effective as opposed to being on hold trying to get a hold of somebody in Frankfurt.
That's right.
So that was the idea behind it. We want to make sure the state government utilizes AI because there's a tremendous benefit, but we also wanted to make sure that everybody's data was properly protected, make sure that, we've got a black box of state data that can't go out to foreign governments or some of the AI data sets. And we wanted to make sure that citizens understood that there are AI tools being used, and this is how they're being used. So we felt like Senate Bill 4 was a great first step.
Yep. Certainly, you all recognize that there's still a lot of work to be done. Could you talk a little bit about some of the protections against deep fakes as they relate to political campaigns? You put in some regulations related to that. What are your thoughts there?
I'm happy to take a stab at
Sure.
that. One of the things that we're seeing is that deepfakes are getting easier and easier to make. And it's easy for you and I and high school students and kids to make apps at home now, videos at home, generate new content without any supervision that looks very, very real. And so one of the conversations we've had is what happens right before an election. You could drop a mail piece that maybe is, that may look something different or may hint at something that didn't happen, that's one thing. But it's something else to have a video of perhaps me or Josh going into an inappropriate place, or have a voice on something that wasn't our position that we've been campaigning on. So how do we protect the voter in that conversation? And so rather than saying you can't use AI, what we did in that bill in Senate before was to provide a disclosure so that if you're going to use AI as a tool, that you have to at least disclose it at the bottom, kind of like we disclose who's paying for something. So at least it may cause the voter to question, is this true? Is it accurate? Is it a reflection of the actual person? In hopes that we would have some transparency, because I think it could be something that could be used very negatively in campaigning as we move forward.
Well, I'll just say my mom, who's a baby boomer, she has no ability to distinguish between AI-generated video and actual video. She's been buying pills from Elon Musk on the internet off of Facebook. So we can't have that in our political system. But on the other hand, we do want to be careful to protect free speech.
Exactly. It's a balancing act. And I'd like to know more about what's next. What are the concerns? What's the next area of great concern?
All right. Join us right after the break. We'll pick up those topics.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Hi, I'm your special host, Dr. Lance Pearson with the Kentucky Liberty Caucus. Today we're talking about issues related to artificial intelligence with State Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe and State Rep Josh Bray. I'm also joined by Jim Waters in our studio as we talk through these issues. And I do want to pitch, we are a listener-supported ministry and radio program / podcast. We got a lot of pies in the oven, I guess you could say. And so if you want to support that, please go to kyvoice.org and click on try to donate to this in order to support conservative discussion on Louisville radio, which I'm sure you know as a listener we need a lot more of.
Now that's what makes us unique. That's what, we're a conservative, common sense, Christian-based media outlet here, project. We want you to be involved. And if you're interested in being involved further with this project, reach out to me at jim.waters@kyvoice.org, and we'll get you plugged in. Thanks, Lance.
Okay. All right, this segment, we're going to try to focus in on some of the economic impacts of AI, both for the good and potentially for the bad. I know there's a lot of people out there that are probably concerned if we have AI and robots that are going to be able to perform jobs as well as we can, thinking as well as doing manual things, what are humans going to do?
But I think the key too also is what's government's role in this.
That's right.
Rarely have we seen more government regulation make things better. We've seen reasonable, limited government make things better. So I think that's got to be part of the discussion, I think.
That's right. And I just want to give a little bit of statistical background on what we're dealing with in terms of AI and its impact on our economy and business. We're only at the very beginnings of this transition. This will be a radical transition for our economy. I want to emphasize that. Right now, we're only at the beginning, though. So a recent MIT study in August of 2025 did an analysis of 300 plus AI initiatives, and it showed that 95% of business firms had seen no return on investment yet from generative AI, that creating of new content sort of things from those investments. However, those experiences vary. In certain fields, for example, in medicine, some studies have reported that there were general productivity gains of between 10 and 20%. In some areas like reading, imaging, and radiology, and we'll get into that in our last segment, the impacts on healthcare, AI has been basically shown to perform as well or better than human doctors, and there is a shortage of radiologists. So we really want to focus in Kentucky on one topic that was covered in our AI task force, and that was the impact of AI on manufacturing and logistics jobs. So in Kentucky, manufacturing contributes enormously to our economy. It's estimated that there are 250,000 Kentuckians that work in manufacturing in over 6,000 facilities and businesses. That produces $48 billion in exports. Automobiles, for example, are extremely important. Similarly, Kentucky is a major logistics hub with over 95,000 employees in more than 600 logistics facilities. And so examples of that are the UPS Worldport here in Louisville. There's an Amazon Air Hub, and there's DHL Hub in Northern Kentucky. And so this could drive some job creation as well, but it's really going to transform those things. And I want to emphasize at the federal level, the White House released an AI action plan in July of 2025 that emphasizes the opportunities that AI presents in manufacturing and logistics. So I want to ask our legislators that we have on. Let's try State Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe. What were some of the recommendations or some of the discussions that you all had on the task force that related to fostering AI innovation in some key sectors of our economy, like manufacturing and logistics? What did you all talk through, and how did those line with that general federal policy of promoting AI?
Sure. Well, let's just take a moment and look at a few statistics. Deloitte made a report that it will take one robot to replace 2.6 humans, that by 2030, 52% of all the production will be done by robotics. John Deere said since 2024, they've done 3 million automatic precision weed spraying. Think about that. 3 million hours of that has been done completely by an AI tool. And then when you think about Amazon and what they're doing up in Northern Kentucky, the largest robotic floor in the world happens to be up there. And when we've been there and seen it, and what you've seen is them doing massive change in how they use workforce. So instead of using workers to move packages left and right, you're seeing them use autonomous vehicles, very small robots that are moving around, and the humans are the ones making sure, walking around with iPads, fixing them, making sure they're being effective. And so the upscaling, the change of jobs is not something new that we've had to deal with. I think the question is how quickly it will change.
That's right.
And can Kentuckians find different ways of working in those spaces quickly? If it moves too fast, I think that's where you're going to see a really big economic impact. You also think about how much in customer service, which is now done by AI. Salesforce said half of it by the end of this year will be done by an AI tool. So where will Kentuckians find work, and what is our job to make sure that we support the innovation and education system? I think is pretty critical. And that's one thing that we're going to be doing, is making sure that the pipeline for workforce is a little bit broader, that takes some of the ideas and has a little more IT background, if you will. But you're still going to need problem solvers. You're still going to need people who are overseeing those facilities. So it's going to be an impact, but I think we're looking to make sure that it's a gradual one and not a quick one.
Right.
There's a concept called creative destruction, economic principle that says that, sure, we go through these times when we lose jobs, but we create other jobs that require, as Senator Bledsoe is mentioning, a better education system, a better prepared workforce prepared to do mechanical or repair. And this is going to create new jobs like that. Right. So there's always going to be this going on, but I think it's fascinating how quickly this is happening.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I will say I personally am quite concerned about it. I agree. There's not a lot of people driving around horses and buggies anymore. We transitioned to the automobile.
One of the concerns too is these data centers, and they are, in one sense, it depends on how you look at it. They are big, large companies that are going to produce a big impact on our economy, but they don't hire that many people necessarily. But as was pointed out earlier, they're going to create the opportunities. So we have to make sure that that's protected.
That's right.
That option.
Now, just to give some perspective on this possibility of worker displacement, research by the Brookings Institution indicates the generative AI could substantially shift or replace half or more of the tasks that workers do. 14% of workers have already been displaced by AI, particularly people coming out of college and that younger generation. People that went into computer science, for example, we now have artificial intelligence that's writing a lot of that code. And so I want to ask Josh Bray to come on. How do you see the task force planning to address that potential for job displacement 5 years from now? If we have 20% unemployment, for example, because we haven't figured out what other people are going to do with all these new AI jobs, has there been any discussion about preparation of the workforce and AI literacy to help people transition to those new tech jobs that you think might come around because of AI? Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, when we set out to start this year on the task force, I thought, we were going to focus on three things: education, economic development, and energy. And we've pretty well stuck to that. I don't think we're going to see this huge, just overnight switch flip where we're going to have 20% unemployment. I think what we're going to end up seeing is instead of 3 or 4 companies, you may have 10 different companies in a market now. I think AI is going to give us the ability to expand the economy as a whole. But, kind of using one of your earlier examples, back when the Model T came around, you had all these blacksmiths making horseshoes.
Right.
And the blacksmiths had to adapt, and instead of making as many horseshoes, now they're having to make parts for.
That's right. They were on the assembly line making parts. This is not static. This is a movement. This is in our market. Yeah, it's movement.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen shifts, massive shifts in our economy all throughout history, and this isn't going to be that.
Yep. All right, we're going to pick up that conversation right after the break. Come on back to us. You're on Kentucky's Voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back. You're on Kentucky's Voice with your special host, Dr. Lance Pearson. Joining me in the studio is Jim Waters. We're discussing AI with 2 very esteemed state legislators, State Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe and State Rep Josh Bray. At the end of the last segment, we were talking about the possibility of job displacement. What are going to be those new jobs that are going to come into? And I want to kind of slightly transition into the impact of AI in education. What should we be training our upcoming workers in?
Well, I would like to use the term job replacement rather than necessarily displacement in many cases. But yeah, I mean, doesn't this just bring to the surface more or magnify the need for a strong K through 12 and education system, improvement in the basic academic areas, preparing kids for the future. This is going to be, I think, even more important, is it not?
Yep. I think that's 100% true. Let me bring back Rep Josh Bray. You had some discussion about those new industries that might come in, or the new jobs that are going to appear as AI replaces some of the tasks, maybe some of the more menial tasks that people are doing, both intellectual and physical. So what was the discussion of some of these topics on the AI task force? What are our universities already starting to do in order to prepare the next generation of workers to enter this new and hard to predict economy?
Yeah, so we put it out there to all of the state-run universities, and we even got some feedback from some of the private, colleges, just wanting to know, like, hey, how are you all preparing for this new marketplace? How are you all educating the future workplace? And we were pleasantly surprised to see that the post-secondary institutions, all of them offered some form of AI education. Even I went down to Corbin to speak at Sora this year and got to talk with the president of the University of the Cumberlands, and they've got this huge, robust AI program down there to where they're training students in it, how to use it, how to be productive with it. And you're right, it's going to offer a very good benefit to the K-12 system. I think it could radically change how education's performed in the state, to where it's going to provide an opportunity for each student to have a personalized tutor that can help them in areas they're struggling. It's going to give us, I feel like it's going to give us the ability to supplement teachers, to kind of give them superpowers to where they can individualize possibly their class lessons to each student to where they couldn't do that before.
Right. Right.
Your lower performing students that may be falling behind can now get maybe more one-on-one instruction from the teacher, because one, it's flagged that, hey, this student's having trouble comprehending this subject. But then the higher performing students is going to they'll be able to have an online tutor or an AI tutor to help them maybe perform at a faster pace.
Absolutely.
We've seen shortages, all throughout K through 12, but particularly like if we look at, let's just take chemistry in high school, because of the way it's credentialed, we've got a shortage of chemistry teachers in the state. And so what if we could utilize some kind of supplemental AI to help to give that chemistry teacher the ability to teach more kids, or do some kind of online option to where school districts are sharing a chemistry teacher. Right. The possibilities are kind of really exciting, just in that we should be able to quickly identify students that are struggling, and we should be able to form a corrective action plan a lot quicker. Right. And provide more direct, hands-on instruction from a human to those students.
That's good news.
Yep, I think that's fantastic news. I just want to quickly transition over to Senator Mace Bledsoe. What are your thoughts on this general topic? What are some of the things that you drew out of the discussions of what are higher education facilities, universities, colleges, technical schools, even how they're implementing some curricula around AI, and then do you think are some potential impacts at the K through 12 level, maybe improving our K through 12 education through the use of AI? Go ahead.
Well, Josh is exactly right on the K through 12, and we all know students who are struggling, who need a little extra help. And so to be able to have a personalized tutor in their space during the day, for not all day, but 30 minutes here, 20 minutes here, that's going to be highly effective and give teachers more options. So I think that's actually especially those who are disabled or has specific things they need help with, that's going to be great. So I'm very excited about that. And every teacher is going to use AI differently. If a teacher is very comfortable, they're going to be comfortable using it in the classroom. If they're not, they won't. And so how we upscale our teachers to understand it as a tool, I think, is also very important, and something that KD is working on. I'll just shout out to University of Kentucky has one class called Artificial Intelligence they're asking every individual student to take, and mostly just try to educate them on when it's appropriate, how to use it, how to supplement the material. You don't want to cheat. I've got high school students, and so it's real easy for one of them to say, come on, Mom, I'll just put it in ChatGPT. Well, garbage in, garbage out, right? Other teachers are okay with them using different ideas, because they're okay with them using that as a supplement, or maybe a starter, as a jump start on a problem. So it's really interesting to see them struggle through this too. So teaching responsible use, teaching the ethical framework of when we should use it and how and why, and where it's appropriate, where it's not. These are things we're going to have to train our students from kindergarten to adults, honestly, to do. And that's something that I think is going to take all of us pitching in a little bit. It's not just going to be as parents, we're responsible for that as well. So I'm excited about the options in the future about it. The concerns are real. And those are also things that we're going to have to train teachers and parents to work through.
It's a must do, really, too. If our kids, by the time they get to the job market, this is going to have change the market dramatically, and they need to be prepared. So it's really going to help prepare them for what AI has created.
Right, 100%. I want to piggyback on basically what everyone said. I think all these comments were fantastic. I have several friends that are going through college now, and when I'm trying to give them advice, what are my life lessons, and I'll try to advise them, what major should you go into? And I know when I went through college and I took this advice, everyone said, hey, you should go into computer programming. Computers are going to be pretty important. And it turns out they were right, at least for my generation. But a lot of the jobs that are being immediately displaced right now, and remember, we're just right at the very cutting edge of this transition over into AI-driven economy. The first jobs that have been eliminated are computer coders, because the computers are really good at writing that next computer
really
code.
ironic, isn't it?
It is ironic.
Hey, Lance.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
No,
Mace Bledsoe.
I think you're exactly right. But one of the things I would throw out there to you about computer programming, yes, 30% of Google AI is now done without a software programmer, right? That's massive. But what we need is more critical thinkers. I mean, I was a
100%.
philosophy Latin major in college, right? Of course, I planned to go to grad school, but you would ask me, would I do this today in AI? No. But this is a critical thinking skill, and we've got to create opportunities for kids maybe to have different thoughts about college than maybe they had before. It's not, some are professional degrees; those are important, but some of the arts and some of the maybe underutilized majors might be beneficial in this space, because we're creating entrepreneurs, critical thinkers, dreamers, which I think will be maximized and better used when we have AI to supplement it.
Well, and the non-professional aspects is some of those blue collar type jobs, plumbing and electrician and HVAC are all going to be impacted by this. And Josh, Representative Bray.
Well, and Senator Bledsoe hit on something that I think is really important that we don't talk about enough. Students right now will have more access to information than any other group of kids or people that have ever existed. I mean, you can literally learn about absolutely anything just by asking Grok or ChatGPT or whichever AI you want to use. But the real issue and the real focus needs to be on teaching kids how to solve problems, teaching kids how to think critically, teaching kids how to process stress, how to just critically think. And so, whereas before, we had to learn just all of these facts, we've now got facts at our fingertips. And so I think we're going to have to really kind of focus on soft skills, interpersonal communication, stuff like that, because AI will never be able to replace that. And then we're going to have to focus on critical thinking, because anybody can ask AI, a set of facts or how to solve a math problem, but you have to be able to critically think in order to write a prompt to get what you want out of AI.
That's right.
And I was just thinking about the difference in solving a math equation versus a word problem. We had those, the difference in answering a word problem, or a math problem issue, solving that problem, using the information in solving it is going to be critical.
Somebody has to be able to, like if we're needing to know just, I'm going to use building a house. If you're needing to know how tall your ceilings need to be in order to get the correct roof pitch, you've got to be able to identify the problem in order to ask the question.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I see as the biggest challenge in education forward, is making sure that we can identify problems and think critically enough to get access to the information, because we've got the information. It's just going to be, can we identify what we need, and can we ask the right questions to get it? Right.
Let me just put a cap on the end of this discussion. I think one of the biggest themes that I took out of it, and I agree wholeheartedly with, is rote memorization of facts. That's gone. There's no reason to be teaching that. What we do need to be teaching is teaching kids how to think critically about problems, how to problem solve, how to think rigorously about those problems. And a lot of that goes into something called AI literacy. And so if you're interested in reading more about the plan of the United States on issues like AI literacy, search online for something called Executive Order 14179. 14179. That's the federal government's policy on AI. Join us after the break.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your special host, Dr. Lance Pearson, joined in studio by Jim Waters. I do want to do another pitch. If you want to see the video for this podcast, you can find that on YouTube. It's being streamed right now on Facebook Live. You can find either of those with Kentucky's Voice. It will be on at 12:30 and at 4 p.m.
And 8 p.m.
Oh, and 8 p.m. Well, we're on TV all the time, apparently, on Channel 21 in the Louisville area if you have Spectrum. Okay, at the end of the last segment, we finished some of our thoughts on what is AI going to look like and how do you prepare your kids, for example, to go into a world that the economy is going to be radically transformed by AI. And unlike a lot of other revolutions in our economy, this is going to both happen very fast. In the next 5 to 10 years, we could be radically changing almost every industry. So we need critical thinkers to come out of our schools. On this final segment, we're going to talk over some of the issues related to healthcare and AI. So that relates to some of the jobs that we were talking about earlier. Healthcare is a job. There are lots of jobs in Kentucky in healthcare. But there's also lots of ethical challenges when we're dealing with the role of AI in healthcare.
There's a lot of unfilled positions, and
That's
how
true.
could AI help fill those critical needs in the healthcare system? Again, it's going to be a balance, I think.
That's 100% true. So I just want to kick this pretty quickly over to let's try State Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe first. What were some of the discussions as they related to AI and healthcare that the interim task force on AI produced? And so just talk about some of those issues.
Sure. I think with all things AI, you want to think about when it's appropriate to lean in, where there's low risk, and where to lean back, where there's high risk. And one of the things in healthcare is there's so many opportunities. AI can read 150,000 words per second. That would take you and I 10 and a half hours to do. So when you think about just dictation in the office, for instance, if a doctor isn't spending time dictating every piece of the conversation, instead an AI tool knows not to filter in the, hey, how are you, how are your kids, and only takes the information that is specifically related to the medical conversation, that frees up that doctor to have more intentional talk and conversation with you as a patient. 1 in 3 Kentuckians is on Medicaid. We need Kentuckians to have better health care and become better, healthier Kentuckians. And so if we can provide ways to have better tools in that space, that's going to provide Kentuckians hopefully better care. We also heard in some of the task force that individuals are less likely to respond to maybe a parent or a spouse who is maybe encouraging you to take your meds, but they're okay with an AI tool following up with you, asking, have you walked today? Have you taken your meds at this time? Are you walking today? The things that you need to do to keep your healthcare and follow through the protocol, we know that if they can have a tool that will help them, that's going to make sure they do it. They're going to follow the protocol. They're going to become healthier. And that's a benefit for all of us. I mean, the space here is really exciting. If they can provide better reading, for instance, on their blood work to find out what kind of cancer you may have, or if you're spiking for a certain treatment, and they can find that out sooner and find the right medicine and protocol for that individual, you're going to get treated faster. You may be out of the hospital more quickly. You won't have to spend the night in the hospital because we know you don't have that particular need. So there's really a lot of opportunity, and I think it's really exciting. And honestly, from a youth perspective, what they're doing in some of the Alzheimer's research is very, very exciting. And as someone who hopes to have research done in that space for me one day, it's really exciting. And we just have to be mindful that we're not using it inappropriately, not using it to make healthcare decisions who should or shouldn't get treated, for instance, on insurance. But it can be pretty exciting.
Right. Let me go ahead and kick this over quickly to Josh Bray. You just heard Senator Mays Bledsoe discuss some of those things that are related to reducing some of the administrative tasks, the paperwork, maybe even advancing research quicker in the healthcare space. Can you also talk a little bit about the possible benefits that AI might have to filling gaps in healthcare coverage and reducing costs? I mean, our economy, our social welfare programs are basically being destroyed by the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. How can AI help on that?
Yeah, so I mean, the healthcare system's rife with bureaucracy. So anything that we can do to cut through some of that red tape, that anything that we can do, whether it's prior authorization or making sure that you're taking your medicine on time. You know, I saw something estimated, it was like 30 to 45% of all healthcare costs is just administrative.
Yeah.
So if we can just cut back on that 10%, I mean, that's going to be huge. One of the things that most excites me, you know, I live in a rural setting. Got like you talked earlier, radiology there's a huge need for doctors to read X-rays. That they're critically short all throughout the state, but AI has shown to read as good or better in most cases than the human doctor. And so if we can have, you know, maybe AI does a preliminary reading on an X-ray and a human follows up on it to double check, you know, you're talking about expanding healthcare opportunities, access opportunities all throughout the state, particularly in rural Kentucky. And that's something that's desperately needed. And it's really exciting. You know, if I don't have to travel to Lexington to have something done, if I can just have it done at home, you know, that's a huge benefit to me and my family. So I do feel like there's a potential amount of opportunity there.
Especially, you know, if you can reduce the chances of error too,
100%.
you know, getting it right with the patient, you know, and there could be some opportunities there.
I believe there was some stat where it's actually medical errors are the second leading cause of death among Americans. So you go to the hospital with some condition. Now, I don't want to discourage people from going to the hospital or seeing their doctor. I'm just saying there are a lot of medical errors that happen, and if AI can help reduce those, that would be fantastic.
But like Senator Bledsoe talked about, there's always going to be the AI is not going to talk to the patient and explain to them, answer their questions necessarily in the doctor's. That's still going to be a role for the human interaction there. I think it's going to become even more important, probably, you know, as we see this develop.
Okay. And let me go back to either one of the legislators that wants to field this. What are some of the ethical challenges that you all have heard about with respect to using AI in healthcare? And so what are some of those concerns, whether that be liability or data privacy, those sorts of things? Whichever one wants to jump in, feel free.
And also, what can we expect from the task force as well? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I'll jump in real quick, I guess. We want to make sure that, you know, that data is HIPAA compliant. We don't want, you know, we've got all these HIPAA laws for humans. They need to equally apply for AI. Make sure that data is safe and secure and isn't being used to target you for ads. You know, if you've got some kind of ailment, you don't need to go on Facebook and just get bombarded with that because I read an X-ray. As far as what can we expect, it's funny because right now we're reviewing those recommendations from the task force. As soon as we get done with this, I'm going to give Amanda a call so we can kind of go over some of the preliminary stuff. I think you're going to see us focus on some energy policy tied to data centers. There'll be some stuff on data centers to make sure that we've got the right amount of regulations inside because not all data centers are created equal. They promote, you know, there's a tremendous opportunity there, but we need to make sure that we've got good safeguards in place so that we're not utilizing all of our energy capacity on them. You know, right now with the tariff talk and we're seeing a lot of onshoring of manufacturing. We want to make sure that Kentucky's positioned to take advantage of those jobs because that is a critical need. And then education, there'll be a recommendation or two around education, kind of what we talked about earlier, and access to Medicaid data for researchers.
Okay. let me throw it over to Senator Mays Bledsoe. And just on a little bit of that topic, before you get into what do you expect to produce from this task force, let's take a scenario where we have an AI chatbot that is monitoring mental health for children or a teenager or even an adult, and they make a bad recommendation, and that person has some negative medical outcome, even dies or maybe commits suicide. Who should be liable for that? Should the AI program be liable for that? I know there was some discussion of that. And I do want to stress, and I know you'll probably stress it also, we don't want to be imposing a bunch of unnecessary regulations to just make this a jobs program. If the AI can perform these services faster, better, cheaper, what are we doing trying to preserve various jobs when we should just be using these as tools to increase the productivity of our existing doctors? So go ahead and talk about that. And also, what are your thoughts on the work product of this task force?
So you're exactly right. I think one of the challenges in every profession, there's a standards board. If you're a lawyer, we have standards boards there. We have the same thing in medicine. We have it in mental health or social work. And the question kind of goes back to what we were asking: where is government's role in this? When is it appropriate for us to for government to put in a framework or put in boundaries? Is that better decided by the governing board of that professional degree or that program or that role? And I think there's a balance here. And I'm not sure that we've necessarily decided where that balance needs to be. But to your point, as a mom, how often do I get on Google and ask WebMD about a situation with a kid or a fever or a sore throat? Someone gets on and asks them, am I depressed? Do I have mental health challenges? And all of a sudden they're down a chat box and they're down a path that they did not intend to be on, with maybe somebody who is not a mental health professional, who's simply just affirming with empathy how they're feeling. And all of a sudden we've seen cases where they've had suicidal end results in that. And so the question is, well, who's responsible and where does government land? And I think that's something we're very mindful of, and it's a tension that we're going to have to manage kind of differently in every profession. And we're still discussing it. I don't know that you'll see us do a large degree of regulation or legislation there first. Can that be handled in regulation, which might make more sense, that it can be edited and changed more quickly throughout the year? And so that's a really important discussion. And I think it's one you're going to see us talk about quite a bit in the last task force meeting.
You know, on the energy issue, is this an opportunity for Kentucky, with as much energy as we have here, to benefit from the energy demands that these AI data centers are going to create? That might also be another opportunity for our state.
Absolutely. And I think everyone wants better energy infrastructure. We just want to make sure that the costs aren't passed on to the consumers rather than some of these huge companies that are profiting off this. All right, I want to thank our guests, State Representative Josh Bray and State Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe. It's heartening to see that we're having some thoughtful conversations in our state legislature about these extremely important issues. I just want to also thank Jim Waters for joining us. Check us out on all of the social media and TV platforms. This is Kentucky's Voice. Thank you.